that's what mine is.
Yeah.
And I heard last year there was like 30.
Oh, goodness.
So.
I don't know, it's very hard to decide.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Glad you're here to our first session of Madera Classroom Management Methods. And we're glad to have you. We've got a lot going on. But let's start with some introductions. And I am Steve Thornton. I am the coordinator for beginning teacher support. And we've been here for 11 years and serving beginning teachers along the way. And then before that, I was an English teacher at Madera High School. And before that, I taught English and reading at Chavez Middle School in Planada. And before that, history and English at La Grande High School. But this is my second career. Before that, I was a youth pastor for 15 years. And I spent time in Wyoming and Southern California and here in Madera. Tonight we have our consultant, Jenny Taylor, and she is our co-leader of our classroom management. And when she stands up in a few minutes, she'll fill in some blanks about who she is and where she's from. But I will tell you that we met about 4 years ago and found out that each of us were delivering a different brand of classroom management. And the district thought it would be better if there was one brand. And so we sat down and I talked about what I do and she talked about what she did. And the credentialing word is we mushed it together. We mushed it together and now we have the best of both worlds, if you will. So Hannah Montana loves it. Some with some kids that know what I'm talking about, the rest of y'all. The best of both worlds, you know, Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana. Oh, okay. They just wasn't funny. I get it. All right. So what we want to know is who you are and what you teach. And if you're brave, tell us how many years of teaching experience you have. And we'll start in the back table because they always want to be, don't pick on me, that's why it's happened back.
Giselle, did you have to say it right as I was taking a bite?
Hi, my name is Susanna Mesa. I am,
What do you teach?
I teach preschool,
Okay.
but it's kind of unique because of the SLP shortage. Instead of an SLP working with language with the preschool children, they hire a teacher to do it. So I get to go out to the Head Start centers and represent speech and language for Madera County.
Welcome, Ben. There's a sign-in sheet.
Yeah,
All right.
that's what I do.
So very good. So you're almost like a consultant or a coach. Very good. And how many years have you been teaching?
Preschool, probably like 15 years.
15 years. Very good.
Private sector, public sector, federal, state, you name it. Yeah.
My wife teaches preschool at Washington,
She's a
and she's been there. Well, she's been in the district over 20 years.
Yeah.
She loves it.
She's my child's former preschool teacher. Yeah.
Small world,
Oh
right?
yeah, she's good. Really good.
My name is Abby, and I am part of the early start program for the class. Basically, it's an early intervention program. In St. Saunders, we go out there in the community to the homes, give strategies to the families early on, early intervention. And I've been in special ed since 2007. And as a teacher, I became a teacher in 2016.
2016.
I was a former IA's SEC class in Montecito.
Oh my goodness.
So that's where I got my internship. That's where I got my vote. Yes.
Well, bless you both for taking on a very tough assignment.
My name is Sally Lopez, and I also work with the Early Start program with Abby. And I've been at Early Start for probably 5 or 6 years now.
Fantastic.
I'm Kimberly Stromer. I teach at John Adams Kindergarten. Love it. And when I first started, I thought after the first 2 weeks, like, what was I thinking? And now I can't imagine anything else. So you just get through the first month and you're good. I've been teaching at John Adams. This has been my 4th year, but I subbed Golden Valley and all Madera Unified for 6 years prior to that, and I worked as a children's pastor for 6 years prior to that. So this is easy compared to pastoring.
We tell our kindergarten teachers, especially when it's their first gig, they come and it's beautiful dress. It's almost always female, although we do have
Yes.
a couple males this year. And they look so pretty, and they're excited about their career. And then the second day, they're in a t-shirt and jeans because kindergarten, first grade teachers see more body fluids than doctors.
Oh, yeah.
And the teeth and everything else that's happening, and they love to touch, right? Okay, where's my old jeans at?
You don't wear dresses because they're very
Also, you learn you can't wear heels because you might have a runner, right?
Uh-huh.
Preschool
Yeah.
too. My wife says I never wear open saddle shoes for the first month because I gotta run.
My name is Kenna Little. I work with Madera County. I teach the 4th through 6th moderate to severe class at Brenda. And it's my second year teaching.
Which class again?
4th through 6th moderate severe,
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you working for the county or for Madera Unified?
the county.
Okay, you just housed it at Brenda.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right. Very good.
My name is Michael Land. I teach English and Spanish at Minarets High. So, as far as like total teaching experience, probably between subbing and graduate school and just other things that I've done privately, this will probably be my eighth year. But as a credentialed like public school teacher at the high school level, this is my second year.
Very good. Very good. Spanish and English.
Spanish and English, so I'm credentialed in both. So I have a degree, my undergrad degree is in literature, so English, and then I have a MA in
Nice.
Spanish.
And when you dream, do you dream in Spanish or English?
You know, it really varies, but like one thing that kind of stuck out for me is earlier this year, like I was opening a door, and there was a bee that kind of flew like right there. So instead of thinking in English, oh, there's a bee, I was like, you know, in Spanish, like there's a bee. And I thought, well, that's interesting, right? So my first reaction under fear was not in my native
Interesting.
language. So,
They say the hardest word to learn in the foreign language is ouch.
yeah, right, or maybe no.
My name is Sylvia Jector. I am the itinerant Spanish teacher for MLK in Desmond, and this is my first year.
Yay, yay, yay. Welcome.
I'm Hillary, and I also work at Adams, and I'm doing 2nd grade, and this is my first year.
All right, all right.
I'm Darla Daggs. I taught for 12 years, then I took 7 years off to have little ones, and so this is my first year back, and I teach 7th grade here at Easton.
And is it a surprise coming back after 7 years? Like, whoa, what happened to all these nice kids? And
Today was a trying day.
the wind does something, doesn't it?
It makes me crazy.
I don't know why, but it
Wind and
does.
rain. Kindergarten's worse.
My name is Felipe Barrientos. I'm an agriculture education teacher. Been teaching 10 years. Currently I work for Madera Unified at a school that has no name because it doesn't have a building or exist yet. I'm going to be part of the concurrent middle school over by Virginia Lee Rose. So we're in year 0 of planning that out. First time as a district for 10 years.
Welcome.
Jennifer Richardson. I am going to do the CTE health at the concurrent middle school. I'm actually a registered nurse, so I'm planning to.
You were at Valley Children's, right?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
at Valley Children's. So I've been a nurse for almost 8 years. This is really my first time teaching. So yeah, so I'm excited.
You found a perfect place to take like a soft landing, so you can, because I understand you guys are going to do some guest things at different junior highs between now and the end of the school year. So you kind of get a little taste before you fall in feet first. And, good.
I am Caitlin Smith. I teach at Pershing Elementary, 1st grade, and this is my 3rd year.
Stephanie Venegas, Pershing Elementary, 5th grade. 9 years teaching, my 6th one in Madera.
Very good. Welcome.
Cheryl Sullivan, also at Pershing, 5th grade. It's my 19th year of teaching. Most of it in 5th and 6th grade. A couple of years in 2nd. That didn't last very long, but I enjoyed the 5th and 6th grade. So
Nice.
Kevin Lappin, I teach at Madera South, science and computer science, and this is my 3rd year.
I didn't even see you walk in, bro. Welcome.
I'm Kayla Davis, and I'm 5th grade at Howard Elementary, and it's my first year.
I'm Sabrina. I teach 9th and 10th grade English at Chippewa High. This is my second year teaching. I did 6 years that I had.
Okay, very good.
I'm Heather Franson. I teach at Madera South. For Madera County, I teach 9 through 12 ED.
Wow. Bless you.
My name is Mary Munch, and I work at Howard with McDoss. I've got the deaf and hard of hearing kids 1st through 4th.
And how many years have you teaching?
This is my 4th.
Fourth.
And I'm Claudia Kastner. I work at Howard for McDoss. And I have the older deaf kids. I have 5th through 8th grade. And this is my 5th year.
And I'm Matthew Yang. I teach at Madera South. I teach math 1, so mostly freshmen. And this will be my 1st year.
Very good. Well, I have to say that this is probably one of our most diverse audiences that we've ever had. And we're excited about having you. And you absolutely broke all of our stereotypes of who we expected. Going forward, Jen and I are probably going to have to rethink some of the things that we're talking about and trying to meet all of your needs. Very unique settings, even over here in Howard. So we're going to have to rethink some things to make that applicable. Having said that, please ask lots of questions because while this is actually our 3rd year doing this, we have taught to a very stereotype,
homogenous,
if you will, class with teachers that are in the classroom kind of doing their thing. And so you're going to present challenges to us and questions that we're really going to have to think about, and we may not have the answers. So it'll be a great challenge and growth experience for us as well. Thank you and welcome. I would like for you, especially if you're here, and I suspect many of you are, because you heard that we are offering 4 units through the University of San Diego for a grand total of $300. If you do the math, that's $75 a unit. Like, yeah, I don't even have kids in my class, but I'm here for the units. Okay. Well, I'll explain how it works. We will actually put the enrollment out in the spring, and there's a couple of reasons for that, but one of them is we know from experience that there is some attrition, and that some of you come and then you realize it's either not for you or other conflicts come up and you can't come, and I don't want you to pay and then try to get your money back. I have no control over that. You're going to pay San Diego University directly. But for every unit that you want, it takes 15 hours of work. You'll get, and I said 4 hours, so who's my math guy? I heard math over here. How many hours is that? 15 hours per unit. We're giving 4 units. How many hours is that? 60 hours. And if you looked at your calendar, did you all get one of these? Yes? Okay. There's 10 sessions and we're meeting for 2 hours apiece, so that is how many hours? 20 hours. Stick with me now. So there's still another 40 hours you need to make up. So we have 20 hours of you actually working kind of in your lab and experimenting, and another 20 hours of classroom work. Reading articles, writing some reports, analyzing data, that sort of thing. So, in order to track all of that, we want you to join our Google Classroom, and here's the join code, HGYEZLL, all lowercase. So make sure you write that down, or if you have a phone, you can join the class. County Officer Ed Wisofsky, were you able to join the MIG class or PIG class with your email, or did you have to do it personal? Okay, so
I use my district email.
You were able to use your district and join?
But I have Madera Unified email too.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, so Madera County Office Superintendent, what is it called? Thank you. You need to use a personal Gmail in order to join the class, just like with MIC. Okay? Chowchilla High School. Where's Chowchilla High School? Were you able to join with your district email? Yes. Okay, so then you can join this class as well. All right. How many of you are tired when you get home? How many of you, like, you know, you want your wife or husband to just massage these trap muscles right in here? Yeah? And have you Have you found that you're like super sleepy about 45 minutes after class? You're trying to drive home, you're like, right? There's a reason for that, and we're going to fix it. We're going to talk a lot about a stimulus in your classroom that produces the fight-flight reflex, which is a physical reaction to a perceived aggression. It's kind of a remnant of when we were living out in the wild and had to identify something that was dangerous, and we had to be prepared either to run or to fight it off. When your students are interrupting you, when they're off task, when they're causing you problems, when you have a windy day and everything's going sideways on you, the stress inside of you starts to pick up, and it causes your adrenal glands to release a stimulant that causes the fight-flight reflex to kick in, which means that your thinking actually shifts from the neocortex down into the brainstem. Your pupils actually contract. Your blood vessels constrict, your digestive system stops working, your blood pressure goes up, and if you're having interactions with students that are causing this to happen all day long, you're living on stress. You're living on stress. And what we know is about 20 to 30 minutes after the last stimuli of aggression occurs, i.e. the last bell of the day, your body stops producing this chemical and you kind of crash. Very similar to you're hungry, so you eat a donut, you get all pumped up, and then as soon as the sugar's gone, you're like going almost comatose. Okay? That is something that we can work on. And that's what this class is about. How do we manage this class so that you can go home feeling refreshed and energized and actually enjoy what you're doing? We're going to talk about that, and we have 4 modules that we're going to work through. And I'll tell you now that it is a system. And each system interlocks and connects with the next system. So we looked at, could we give this, there's 20 hours, could we have sat for 3 days before school with 3 7-hour sessions and did this whole seminar all at once? Yes. I mean, we would have been beat up and tired when we're done, but okay. But here's what we know. Our teachers have a tendency, or actually humans have a tendency to pick and choose what they like and throw away the rest. And so they might try something that would work for a while and then stop working, because this is a system and not just let me take what I like. That's the first thing. The second is, even as I'm speaking, I know you're only going to remember about 10 or 15% of what we're telling you. And not because you are inattentive or you're bored with my speaking, which is very possible. It's because we just are not great oral learners. Most of us learn by doing. Okay? And so what we're going to do is do, and then we'll come back in a couple of weeks and make you do it again, so that you master all that we're teaching you how to do. We're going to do some really goofy things in here. And I'm going to make you do it, and then you're going to actually do it in your classroom, and it won't feel so goofy when you take it to the classroom. And our data says it works. And we have a lot to share with you over the next 10 sessions. Some have asked, because they're taking units, how many times can I miss? You can miss once. We videotape, as we're doing right now, every session, and then we place it in the classroom for you to look at. We're going to put our presentation in the classroom, and all of our handouts will also be in the classroom. Okay? So you can make up once if you're trying to take the units, but San Diego really wants us to make sure that the seat time is honored and you're here for the majority of those hours. So let me know what's going on if you're going to miss, and we'll work with you and make sure that we mark you. You need to sign in if you're taking the units, because that's our attendance. So that's how we're going to take attendance, is on that sheet. If you're not taking the class but you just want to be here, that's great. Don't sign up for the class. You can sign up, and if you miss, you miss. And if you come back the next time, we'll welcome you and glad to have you, and we understand how all that works. Most of the classes are Monday night. There are 2 that are on Tuesday because they follow a holiday. So we picked Monday because that was the one night of the week that we had not scheduled anything else. And nobody wants to meet on Friday, so I haven't watched Monday Night Football in, I don't know how. I've been doing this for a long time. This is my 8th or 9th year doing this. So I haven't watched Monday Night Football in
So sad.
Here we go. But I will, fortunately, baseball starts at 7, so I get to
Oh
watch
God,
it.
just wait.
All right. Here are the 4 components, and we're going to talk about educational environment tonight. Classroom expectations, lesson planning. We found that there is a strong correlation between great lesson plans and classroom management. We actually are going to spend 3 sessions just on lesson planning. And then accountability and motivations, and you're going to get to that section and go, why didn't you teach us that first? And I will tell you once again that it's a system, and we don't want you to cherry pick the best things and then find that they don't work because everything else is not in place. All right. As we mentioned, we mushed our 2 things, so we probably should switch on different sides. So I'm the Fred Jones person, and she's the
I can't
Tiny
help
Teach
that
person.
fast. That's me.
And we put it all together. All right, I'm going to give it to Jenny. She's going to introduce herself, and then away we go.
So my name's Jenny. I was a teacher. I was in the classroom for over 20 years. And then I ran the Avid program for Central Unified. I did a lot of things, wore a lot of different hats, including coaching, which is what I started doing. And then I got sick, and they told me I couldn't coach anymore. So I immediately got involved with Avid, which took more time than coaching ever did, but whatever. And then 6 years ago, I retired from the classroom. I was encouraged to retire because of my health. So after about 2 years sitting around, I'm just not a sit down, sit around kind of person. And I'd always wanted to work with teachers. And it kind of has worked out that way that I'm now able to do that. This has really blossomed. I think the first time I led a session with Steve, I offended him left and right because I'm not a youth minister, and you'll hear that in some of my comments. But I am a certified minister, and I am officiating a wedding in 2 weeks. Did you know that, Steve? I am. But I didn't go to seminary, so I do this because I wanted to give back. I think as a department chair, I was English also. Don't correct my grammar though; it'll be bad. Poor. I realized that a lot of my teachers were worried so much about legislation and standards and requirements that they lost the whole purpose, which was our relationships with the kids. And I realized after I talked a couple teachers off a ledge, I realized that's what was missing. And so I thought if I ever got the chance to work with teachers, that would be what I wanted to instill, is the value of, we don't obviously make enough money for that to be the sole compensation. It needs to be a relationship with the kids. And you know, daily there should be at least one thing that happens where you go, ah, yeah, that's why I put up with everything, is because of this. And it can be anything, large, small. I've told this story a million times, but you guys haven't heard it, so you get to suffer. When I was student teaching at Sanger, actually I was long-term subbing in PE, which I don't know, other than probably some of your ED classes, I don't know if there could be a worse assignment. And
More challenging assignment.
More challenging. More challenging.
Okay.
Maybe. Maybe. But I had this group of kids, and it was like herding cats, you know, inevitably. And we had a fire drill. And we have, Sanger has a very old gym. I still taught when the old gym was there. And I'm trying to run up and down the aisles, everybody needs to go out, everybody needs to go out. And this one group of kids, girls, were standing there, eyes down. I'm like, you guys, you need to go, you need to go. And they just kind of looked at me. And I barked at them. And because I thought she said something to me disrespectful. And of course, new kid on the block, I was really sensitive. So I get them outside, and I went up to her and I said, what did you say to me in there? And she wouldn't look up. I'm like, look me in the eye. What did you say out there? And she just kept looking down. Finally, she looks up, tears. Miss Taylor, I would never say anything rude to you. She said, all I said was, we need to go. And I realized at that point in time that I jumped to conclusions and that I didn't give this kid a chance. And I automatically assumed it was me versus them. So I told her I would apologize, and I would apologize in front of the kids because that's where I embarrassed her. No, Miss Taylor, you don't have to do that. So I'm like, okay, lesson. Christmas comes. she walks in and hands me a Diet Pepsi and puts it on my desk. And I said, "What's this?" And she said, "Miss Taylor, I can't afford much, but I wanted to give you something for Christmas." And I was like, okay. Like, number one, lesson learned. And number two, I need to give the benefit of the doubt. And that was something that stuck with me throughout my career. And hopefully I can convey some of that to you guys. I have a teenage daughter who attends Minarets. She's a senior, getting ready to graduate. And we're the mountain people. So when you see me, my shoes will be dirty because we have a small ranch. And she was not adopted because I didn't want to ruin her financial aid, but we took custody of her when she was 12. And she went from D's and F's to 4.4, AP classes, doing great, very involved in FFA. And so I can finally say I have a kid and I understand what it's like to have a kid. You know, because you always hear that when you don't have a child, well, you don't have your own kids, you don't understand. And I always thought, well, I kind of do, but you're right, I get to send him home at night. You know, now that I have a teenager, I don't get to send her home at night. And I also didn't have the 6 years, 12 years to prep. Like, she basically moved in with us, and that was it. And all of a sudden I was like, well, I always wanted a kid, but I don't think I wanted him at teenage years. But that was what I was lucky enough to have. So I stole this quote from Marzano, but effective teaching and learning cannot take place in a poorly managed classroom. If students are disorderly and disrespectful for no apparent rules and policies guiding behavior, procedures, I'm not reading it right, chaos becomes the norm. In these situations, both teachers and students suffer. I think you guys probably see this in your own schools or the days where you're just not planned out and you can kind of feel like your schedule is never, you can never like get your feet grounded. You know, there's those teachers that, there's one that I taught with at Central, that's where my career was, by the way, Central. He would fall asleep, and when you walk by his desk, I mean his door, paper would become flying out. And you'd stick your head in, and sure enough, he's asleep. And I thought, you know, even in the best world, that guy's never going to be able to teach. Because he can't even stay awake, number one. And number two, his kids know that he has no control. None. And, you know, safe to say he did nothing in there. And those kids, not only were they cheated, but he ended up finally retiring. And I guarantee you he doesn't look back on his teaching experience as positive. Plus his wife died, and I'm convinced he murdered her, but that's a different story. Mr. Oh my God, I can't think of it. I'll tell you. She was one of my students.
Don't say the name. Don't say that.
So we're going to start with classroom design. And that sounds kind of simplistic, but you would be surprised at how effective it can be. And one of the things that both of our programs teach is prevention. Obviously, if you plan for the worst and you adjust to it, you're going to have less surprises being thrown at you. So with classroom design, it's focused on prevention, keep it clutter-free. I so failed in that regard. I had TAs that would constantly say, Miss Taylor, can we organize your desk? It's embarrassing when a teenager tells me that, but soothing colors, interior loop, 2 seats away or zone of proximity, set limits, and, excuse me, my biggest thing is it's your domain. You decide what can occur in that classroom. It doesn't matter if your co-teacher expects something else. It doesn't matter, you know, what anybody else's expectations are. When that kid crosses that threshold, they're going to know what your rules are. You know, and it does. Think about when you were a kid, if your parents were divorced or you went to your grandparents a lot. I knew at my grandmother's that I'd better vacuum a certain way. If I didn't vacuum the correct way, I had to do it all over again. But at my mom's house, I never had to vacuum anything. So I knew what the understanding and what the limits were for both houses. And I'm sure most of you can relate to that. So it doesn't matter what kind of, if your neighbor is loosey-goosey, you don't have to be. And you don't have to apologize for how you run your classroom. Those kids will know when they walk in the door what's expected of them. I thought this was cool. I don't even know who that guy is, but I stole the quote. It took a while for me to figure out that classroom management was really a relationship building skill, all the way bottom to top. So like, I can set all the rules in the world. If they're on my wall, what really is the guidelines that they're going to follow is what I allow. Because you can walk into a classroom and see people with their pretty rules, and then you're sitting there for 5 minutes and you realize they don't enforce any of them. The kids know they can get away with stuff. I was in a classroom at one of our middle schools, kind of limits it there, and I was in the classroom and kids were climbing on the top of the bookshelves. Like, to me that was, I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. Like, how do you let kids that out of control to be monkeys in your classroom? And the argument, of course, from the teacher was, well, they just don't listen. I thought, yeah, clearly nobody listens to you because that was insane. Do you want to add anything so far?
Yes.
Figured.
You were talking, go back to the slide for a moment. One more. All right, let's talk about your classroom and your setup. And I want you to visualize it in your mind. And there is a yellow piece of paper. And I want you to draw, don't open the second piece of that, just the front shot one. I want you to draw your room to the best of your ability. Or pretend to draw your room to the best of your ability. You don't have to. Just pretend. We'll get to the virtual. Draw a traditional looking one. One of the things we're going to work on, especially next time, is managing your room with your physical presence. In any society, what happens when a person is called out in front of their peers in a negative way? Say it louder.
Embarrassed.
They're embarrassed, okay? And some of the more bold ones will actually escalate it, right? Because they don't want to what? Lose face, okay? And now let me ask you, see if this scenario has ever played itself out before. There is this student in your classroom, maybe he's an athlete, and he's fast. But it's time to sharpen his pencil. And so when it's time to sharpen his pencil, he saunters. Right, you've seen this? And they sharpen, put it in the sharpener. I mean, this kid is sloppy with his work, but when it comes sharpening his pencil, he could apply to be a NASA engineer. What are you doing as a teacher? Do you feel your blood pressure just like creeping up on you and like, that's what we're talking about with this fight flight reflex. I got kids that just kind of just don't get it. We're going to help you with that, and we're going to even teach you all about procedures, how to manage all these things, but we're going to start with the basics, and that has to do with your classroom setup and how to manage the classroom with your physical presence. What happens when you challenge the student to sharpening the pencil in front of everybody? Especially at junior high, what does the class do? Right? And then there's all kinds of chatting going on, and you lost it. We're going to teach you how to manage that without ever saying a word. Okay? Because there's probably a tendency on your part to manage your classroom with that age-old strategy that you pull out because you know it so well, called nagging. Sounds something like this. I'm going to pick on Kevin for a moment. Kevin, I need you to get to work. Kevin says, I am working. Kevin, if I have to look over there again, we're going to have a problem. There shouldn't be because I'm doing my work. Kevin, one more time and I'm going to send you out of the office. Fine, send me out of the office. It's not the student's back talk that gets a kid kicked out. It's the teacher back talk that gets the kid kicked out. So what we want to do instead is actually move over without ever saying a word. And so if I run over here to my good friend Kevin, by the way, I've known him since he was like this big. So I come over here. Does Kevin know why I'm here? Yeah. Absolutely. He might even try some back talk. He might even say, what? I'm doing my work. Why are you over here? And what is my response? I don't say a word. We're going to teach you how to stay calm, how to manage your physical presence, facial expressions, and we're going to practice all that. But for now, I want you to be able to walk your room. You need to work it like a comedian works a room. Everyone at this table knows why I'm here. And if I say anything, I'm going to call Kevin out, and he's going to start escalating because he doesn't want to what? Lose face. Lose face. Okay? Now, if you ask these two right now, how does it feel to have me standing here, and they're looking at me like, man, dude, just walk away. Just my adult presence with adults is kind of offsetting. Imagine what it feels like for a student. All right, but the key to be able to walk a room is to understand that you have 3 zones in your room. 3 zones, red, yellow, and green. Red, yellow, and green. Memorize that because we're going to ask you that throughout the whole next 10 months. Red, yellow, and green. In the red zone, in about 8 feet away, students know they can't get away with anything. They know that you're locked in on any movement they make. You'll find, this is interesting, even when I'm presenting to adults and I walk the room, all of a sudden cell phones go into their laps, laptops get closed, attention comes up. We call this the red zone. They can't get away with anything. The goofing off stops. That's what we mean. 8 feet. 10 to 15 feet is the yellow zone. That's where students will kind of do this. They'll be working and then they'll look up to see you if you're watching and they'll put, can I get away with it? No, yeah? Oh, I can get away with it. I'm going to try it. Yellow zone. Okay? But my back table over there, beyond 15 feet, is in the green zone. And the longer they're in the green zone, the more goofing off we're going to get. Okay? The longer they're in the green zone, the more goofing off we're going to get. So we need a way to flip the lights in a hurry. And unfortunately, there's too many people in this room. It's kind of small with these tables. But theoretically, I ought to be able to walk over to that table in 4, 5, 6 steps quickly. And as I'm doing so, you can feel the lights changing. All right, so now I want you to look back and think about your own classroom. I once worked with a teacher that was struggling with classroom management, and he had the traditional rows that you see back when you were in class, and the last row was against the wall. In a classroom not very well managed, what do you think that wall looked like? I say it again?
Kids goofing off.
Okay, but what do you think the physical wall looked like?
It was probably written all over.
Was it clean?
No.
No, they were writing on it. What else? There's maybe some holes in it. It's made out of, this is actually a wallpaper kind of stuff. Have you ever gone into a room and seen it being peeled away and torn up? And the last kid in the row is a big football player. If the desk is too small anyway, what is he doing? He's got it tipped back. His head's against the wall, oil, whatever else is going on there. That wall is horrible. But more importantly, could the teacher walk to the back of the class quickly? If he's over here, maybe halfway down, he's got to walk out of the row, all the way over here, and then down the road. It takes a lot of time. All that's a distraction to everybody in the classroom, including the teacher. But if we could quickly, in just a few steps, walk over to where it was green, now it's different. Now as I'm teaching over here, they're feeling like, oh man. Did you see how their heads even perked up and their eyes like this? Because they're paying more attention. Now this is the red zone. Okay? And no more goofing off is going on. Kids are paid to goof off. That's their job. And what we need to do is figure out how to stop it. All right, so do you want to go to that packet now or later?
We'll do it, go ahead and do it now, because I'm going to get into the colors.
Okay, so in your handouts tonight is a packet. Hi, classroom manager?
No, I'm sorry.
Car block?
I it out, yeah.
Oh.
JIH581.
What is it? What kind of car is it?
It's kind of like a dark blue gray car.
Just a car, dark blue gray car?
Yeah. I didn't think, I just got the license plate.
All right. I want you, so I want you to get out this packet that says classroom arrangement. And I want you to read the first 2 pages.
Oh, no, it's the one with all the pictures. Yeah, that one. Flip it over. That one right there. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't know how to get it. It's the classroom arrangement that's on the back. Oh, no, it's not.
It's this one.
What the heck? What is it?
It's this one here on the back. It has the seating.
Oh, there you go. It's death by paper. Steve loves his paper. Yeah, that thing on the back. It's got a bunch of desks.
I think we're supposed to read it.
No, not the article yet. He just wants you to have the back. He's going to be talking about the arrangements. Flip it over. There you go. I was telling him where it was. We were all watching.
Read the first 2 pages.
No, not yet. No, don't read them.
Don't read the first 2 pages yet?
No. Oh, you're talking about the seat order arrangement. You're messing my system up. Just do your explanation on the back. Keep going. That. Let's go through that real quick.
All right. Look where it says page 80. Apparently, I was stepping on her territory.
No, not quite like that.
Page 80. Yeah, we're going to read page 80 to 81.
Not in order.
Yeah, just read page 80 and then turn it over. So 80, and then, okay, it says
80 and 81?
80 and 89.
80 and 89.
That makes sense, right? They're in order.
This is
That's the same one. I got rid of the picture on this one. Well, we're doing something about it.
That's fine.
I know, you're right.
All right, now I want you to look at the alternate ways that you can arrange your room through the rest of that packet and consider your drawing of your original space. And can you work the room? Can you flip the switch from red to green, from green back to red, easily? And then on the second yellow page, consider reorganizing your room, if you need to.
The question always comes up, what if I can't move my desks? Like, I know some of the high school teachers are sometimes in science classrooms where they're bolted. Obviously, in that situation, you're limited in what you can do. But I think most of you, from what I heard, most of you can probably arrange your classrooms.
In your rooms, do you guys have that god-awful thing attached to the wall, like that, like part that's supposed to be teacher desk? But like, because Marno got his off, I keep trying to figure out how he did it. I want his, I'm off. I can't stand that thing. I don't use that space, and it's just in my way. Okay, this is my thing, because mine's on this side of the room. Oh, okay. Then I have a desk in the back of the room, so when I'm on our computers, I can see all the Chromebooks at one shot. I have to use carpet space, otherwise I use that, and I have to use the carpet for our docs.
Staying away from the docket.
I want to get whiteboard there. That's what I need to do right now. I want to get the whiteboard.
That'd be good.
What's moving on?
Why can't do this?
We have those, but they're blocked right now with the smart boards. And then they bought us these tablet things so we can control it, but they don't actually work. And so I want to go back to the old one so I can actually use something because I can walk the room when I'm teaching using. I think I know right now I use stuff
But
like
that's
that.
absolute technology, so we're stuck with things that
But after Tennessee, they're buying those for the whole district. And she goes, but they don't work. They're buying them for the whole district. And that's what they're doing. That's what you said. They're buying them for the whole district. But they don't work with our boards. They don't work with the curriculum. Go figure.
they'll work with, they'll probably work with Costco, right? That's the only thing.
Supposed to, and then they're supposed to work when you're just in active inspired, but it doesn't work with the curriculum.
You're kind of doing it organically, but I really do want you to share out with your neighbors kind of how you're changing it around and why, and some insights you're getting to, if I work the room better, I can actually manage
What did you teach? What did I teach? I think I know when you were there, because I think I know what teacher you're talking about. He was not doing anything.
Done? Did you go to something?
I did. What was your name? I didn't have you, but I had friends that had you. And I can't remember like some of the teachers, but it's just like I was like average. Yeah. We had like Cheyenne and stuff in there. I knew Cheyenne and a few other people. Whoa. That's all. I didn't connect. I didn't stay close to anybody. Like I just. Wow. Yeah.
What year?
I graduated in 10. Yeah.
Because I retired in.
I I think I saw it. I only ever had it, but it was just like, I'm like looking, I'm like, I think, oh my god. And when you started talking about the team, I'm like, I know that team.
Oh my god.
But I was like,
and then his wife died mysteriously.
No, I remember that story. I remember like people were like,
and then he walks into the mailroom and says, he's telling me about like how sad he is. And he goes, it's crazy. We just finalized our insurance policy 2 days before she died. And I'm walking out of there like,
that's creepy.
Yeah, he is. He's creepy.
He was odd. I didn't have him. I remember Ford. I remember having Ford as a sub every now and then.
He's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never wants to be a teacher. They offered a position, but he didn't want it. Yeah, he was something else.
High school was I do for you. That's why I'm like, I would never go. I would do it again. Hung out with you. Like, I was relatively good with things. I remember one year in our courthouse, looking back, like, the class they gave her was before.
Oh, yeah. They ate her up.
Oh, yeah, for her.
God, I remember that. I wasn't a department chair then, but man.
They should, like, all the bags were brought in one class, and I remember saying,
and she had no control.
Oh, no.
They ate her up. There was another teacher that came. She might have been there when we were there.
But then,
and she was arrogant.
Was it English one?
Yep.
Blonde?
Blonde with big hair?
I just remember like a blonde girl. She told me I should go to East. Basically, because I just
probably Robbie Fargo.
Maybe, yeah. I think I maybe on her own.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's her. She was a ditz too, and we had just hired her back. She had been with us. Hey, you guys worked with Sandy Laspada?
Yeah, yes, Laspada's awesome.
Her daughter goes to Minarets with my daughter, and we sit at a lot of fairs together. And she was telling me the other day, yeah, I'm over there Pershing, blah, blah, blah. So I go, are any of your teachers coming to my thing? And she's
That's me.
How funny. You'll have to tell her.
Well, we're in the same team for first grade.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's cool.
Yeah.
It was kind of ready for them.
Maybe I won't make her. I have Nick on her. No, this is the best. I've tried everything in the last 2 years. And honestly, some of the kids' personalities are like my demon child the first year. He could not function. He was like I didn't know what I was doing the first year. I was eating nothing because college is not preparing for anything is the reality. So I was just eating up alive. And he was just the rest were okay. I think I would have been okay had I not had him. But he was just dysfunctional to the max. Poor baby. And I knew it wasn't fun. It was always that poor him and poor me because he was last year was I keep the shut You're welcome, yo. Oh, look, there's a trash can right next to me. I can get up whenever we're in centers. I get up and walk around. I wish I had more room to push my one, so it's like some kids like I got to the island. That's one of Like if I get rid of this thing, I can put it in the library up there or something. No, he won't. He's like, I don't know. He just did it. He says, I don't know who he asked or how, but I'm like, I want mine gone. No, someone must be like him because I'm like, I don't know you enough, but I'm like, I'm not going to stitch you out. I just want it gone. Like, I want mine gone. Because it's useless. It's useless space that it just takes for bigger to die. It just disappeared over. I think so. And I'm like, oh, I want her to do it. Like, if you tell me what I need, I will go buy things and do it. Yeah.
I moved them myself. My partner teacher is like, what are you doing? Because I stayed until 7 because I am not worried. Like, I miss my son. Yeah.
Next thing probably is how
Well, and it's funny. I finally made her got tenders because I'm like, I don't care, use me for the distraction. She was like, oh my God. I'm like, and my brother was like, that's not bad, that's actually nice, it's not weird. I'm like, it's weird, but at least he was nice. He's not contributing, but that's funny. I'm just sitting here curling her and Tim, and I'm like, I was born to your text them. You're like, that's funny. That's just for distractions and
Three, 2, 1. Okay, Jenny. You're up.
Oh, sorry. What? Oh, is it me? If not, I'll knock it over. So Steve talked about the interior loop. The 2 seats away kind of goes with his zone thing. You need to be no more than 2 seats away from your student at any time. Reason being, kind of like the red, yellow, and green, is I'm more than 2 seats away, I've lost control of that. I have no presence over there, and unfortunately with teenagers or younger kids or even preschoolers, they're going to sense that right away. And so when he talks about red, green, and yellow, the other thing I think, because I was high school, is I need to make sure that when I'm pacing, I can be to them within 2 seats. Does that make sense? Maybe? Okay. So I think one of the things that I tried to incorporate, I don't know if either one of you recall, but my classroom was chaos. And my seniors would wait 4 years and I'd pop these tiles and they could paint on them. And they designed them however they wanted. Well, pretty soon every tile was painted. And I thought, how cool is that? I'm such a rebel, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized if I was in my own classroom, I would be like this all day long. Right? Which of course takes the focus off of what I'm doing. But I thought it was so cool. It never occurred to me that like my ADD child would be totally distracted by that. Or even the most attentive kid at some point is going to be like, you know, bright colors, all that kind of stuff. So I started thinking about colors, which is ironic because I already thought about colors and I knew what was soothing and distracting and all that. But it never occurred to me to maybe control that on my ceiling as well. So I know some teachers, you guys aren't allowed to paint your walls and things like that. But they do have that crazy butcher paper stuff that you can cover, right? So there's certain colors are better for your kids. What do you think is the best color for inmates? Green?
Pink.
Do you know this already?
I just guessed.
It's pink. And I'll go back to the other side. But San Bernardino County Probation uses bubblegum pink to soothe and relax individuals who are behaving violently. Apparently they will relax, stop yelling, and usually fall asleep. I would have never thought bubblegum pink would do that. Yeah,
Or
crazy.
they just close their eyes because they can't stand looking.
That could be too. That could be too. But then I figure if it was annoying to them, they'd be in a corner somewhere, you know, slamming their head maybe. So ancient societies such as the Chinese and Egyptians use it for healing therapy. I thought that was interesting too. This was all new stuff I found. But the colors are pretty key. So green, balance and harmony, I think we'd all kind of agree with the whole Zen thing on that. And it's a positive connotation. Blue, order, direction, peace, and spiritual. I always knew the peace part. I never really thought about the order and direction. I think that's interesting. And then brown, earthy structure, support and honesty. So if you think about this in terms of where you have things in your classroom. White and beige, pure, light. I really can't spell innocence. I don't know what happened there. And completion. It's a positive connotation as well. I think white. What do you guys think of when you see stark white, though?
Boring.
Boring. What about?
Sterile.
Has anybody ever been to Channel Island, CSU Channel Island? It's a former psychiatric hospital, and everything is bright white. Yeah, the minute my kids stepped on that campus, they were like, okay, this is scary.
What about black and orange?
Central.
Are those negative? Those are the negative colors, right? Black and orange.
Where?
He's being
Oh, he's being a giant. Whatever. I'm like, that's central, don't be rude. Yellow, sunshine, renewal, and hope. So when you think about this, I think in terms of area. Like if I have a reading area, I know a lot of you have little reading nooks and things like that. So think about what colors you have in there. I think a lot of times we immediately think bright, make it fun, but that's not always how the kids perceive it psychologically.
And you have a handout with the same slide.
Yeah, I included it so that when you get home tonight or when you go to do your classroom, at least it'll be there for it to trigger in your head. I had a whole wall of, I don't know, I paid somebody to do it, but it was all one color. Because when people first walked in, I wanted them to see that right away and to convey, it was blue. I've had blue all over. But I didn't really think about, I knew it was peace and spiritual, but I didn't think about the order part. So it's kind of cool if you're like maybe your math area, when you need them to be calm, but you're also trying to maybe have them convey some sort of order. Maybe blue would be perfect for that. I mean, some folks would say, this is so stupid. But on the other side, think about how when you walk into a doctor's office, there's a reason why they have the colors they do. There's a reason why the jails and prisons have the colors they do. And I mean, we don't want our kids to feel like when they're in a classroom that they're in a prison. You know, you walk into Valley Children's, completely different atmosphere than if you walk to downtown community. Unless you've never been there. There's some fun people down there. Any questions or comments about that? Because when you're thinking about, I also used to do a whole thing on smells, but apparently Fresno Unified's going away from anybody wearing any kind of smells, teachers, students, or anything. And then I guess Madera passed the rule or whatever that you can't have any kind of candles or any kind of smellies in there. I mean, frankly, like, teenage boys don't always smell great, so I always wanted to have some kind of smelly in there, but apparently you can't do that now. I mean, I taught in the old days, so. Yes, ma'am?
I think it's hard to find the right color or to choose if you have a classroom that has maybe mixed ability children, you know, autistic kids that need a certain color, and then some that are a little different, or the parents that expect to see red, orange, and yellow, green, blue, purple, and, you know, cutesy, but he wants to make colors.
And I think a lot of classrooms, I don't have the pictures on here because we'll talk about it next time, but when you walk into a classroom that's horribly busy, what is the feeling when you walk in right through the door? Yeah, you're overwhelmed. Think about how a child who can't process that immediately would feel about walking into a crazy, you know, classroom. That would have been my classroom. I'm surprised I didn't have more kids, you know, have breakdowns, because it was craziness in there. And the colors were crazy, and I never really thought about how it was conducive. I was creating a somewhat chaotic atmosphere for them. And I mean, I was loud enough and crazy as it was, I didn't need to add to that. So we already did this. Yes, sir.
I have one question. It's not really in there, but I was just thinking, like, in terms of having a room that's very organized versus one that has maybe areas where it's not as organized, what would be the difference maybe in the perspective that students have? So like if your room is completely clutter-free versus areas that maybe that are cluttered, or?
So studies say that the kids thrive under the non-chaotic room.
Everywhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
They say that. I think people have been teaching a long time. We all know that we like gather stuff. I mean, you always think that someday you're going to use this again. You know, someday. I did my student teaching in history, and I taught 20-something years in English. But I kept every one of those history things in case someday I was going to teach history again. So, I mean, we're hoarders by nature, most of us. And we beg, borrow, and steal. Like if somebody says, hey, I have an extra file cabinet, who's going to say no? Everybody says yes, because you may never get it again. Or you'll learn that soon. Or like they'll come in and they'll say, like I had 6 overheads in my classroom because I didn't want to give it up. Because someday I might need that 6th overhead, right? I mean, because you know, that's it. I had one teacher who had this like almost 12-foot long, handmade, I mean shoddily made, but it was still handmade, piece bookshelf. That thing weighed a ton, but I made sure when she left, that puppy was in my room. You couldn't move it. You couldn't move it without like 6 people, but I wasn't giving it up. And then when I left, somebody said, can I have it? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I might take it with me. You know, like really, come on. Of course, the drug dog showed up one day, and apparently one of the kids trying to get not caught with pot stuck it into my bookshelf, but you know, whatever.
One more thing though. Let me share on the other side of the perception of a messy room. And I don't know if you know, but I have 3 jobs. One is to work with induction candidates, another is to work with teachers that are earning their preliminary, and the third is to work with veteran teachers that are struggling and who have gotten an evaluation that says you're in trouble and we need to work with you. And having read through evaluations from all over the place, I can tell you that teachers are getting poorly evaluated for a room that is messy, and some are getting written up because their room is beyond messy and chaotic. And so just understand that that's a compliance issue, it's a safety issue, it's a fire hazard, and it can become a disciplinary issue if you're a pack rat and messy. So something to think about organizing and getting rid of stacks. Just letting you know on the management side, they see it, and everyone wants a clean room.
I think it's a good thing I don't work for Madera Unified right now. They'd walk in my classroom and I'd be written up Tom stuff.
Yeah.
You guys already did this, but I didn't include, we didn't ask you to include the colors, but I can see you're all kind of thinking about it now anyway. I don't need you to write it down. Now, the article that we were all discussing.
And apparently, one's with the picture and one isn't, but they're duplicates because I got confused.
Well,
so
I didn't know what I was saying, but...
So you can read this one, if you want to, or you can read this one, and it's the same.
What we're going to have you guys do, too, is after you read it, I want you at your table to come up with 10 key ideas that you got out of it. Just 10. Okay? Are we going to do... Right? lounges?
Screen time from just the first part of the under.
No, just I think just the first part.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is just the other part.
Yeah.
Ideas.
10.
Have you had yours in
You have one. I have one. Yay! I'm proud of the one. That's about it. That's the only one I took away. Cause I'm like, for me, I'm like, I keep some personalities on enough. Like, because I like blue, green with the walls, and I like sunflowers. And that's what I'm leaving. I'm keeping my fridge. You don't see it. It's underneath. I want to get a microwave, because I never leave my room. Because I hate going to the other ones. And my room is clean. Yeah, so I'm like, I want my own. I just gotta figure out where to put it. But once I fit, I'm like, the rest of that is like, we have our own space. We have this year, last year. So she has the core stream out?
Yes.
Outside, so you use down there, so it's like behind the white dirt. Is the cord higher behind the whiteboard? Like it still slides with the cord? So like, or did she drill a hole? There's a hole. And then it goes down into the thing and floats in. I have to figure that out. I haven't got it. Because if I can do that, I'll throw it in there. I don't bring stuff down either. Like, she can bring sandwiches. I'm like, if I can do that, steak sandwich. But like, leave it in the room, I'm like, by the time I'm like, I'm not fast. Yeah. We plan stuff like that during our lunch. So yeah, it works out good. Well, we kind of know each other, like, we know, what everyone's what works for you, or, yeah. So, we're like first grade, we're all just we're on the same track with everything, but we all like grow at lunch. I'm not changing the desk because you cannot flip the desk.
Yeah.
It does not do that.
Yeah, I have a pretty good room.
I have a desk in the back, kind of.
So there's a lot of issues.
It keeps turning off and then it keeps back on.
I know. Yeah. But it's just challenging to begin because those other boys do not want to in their family, so I do the use. I use here and I have two open. These two swings only come in part of the day.
Okay, got 3 minutes. Come up with your 10 things.
I mean, he's like working on everybody. Yeah, he makes it. He makes it I like the part that says don't change it too often and allow time to let them adjust and try between changes. Because I feel like I want to affect everyone. It takes time. The views are kind of working because they are facing forward and the student is facing forward and trying to get he still has issues getting out of his seat. And if he wants to grab his boy to come back here, distractions or whatever that's a kid. And they can just tell me he can get out of his seat. No one can get out of the same.
One, but it's not that too separate. That's the same thing. Be afraid of change. It's the same thing. I'm good. I'm gonna go with the materials.
I have dark blue.
For your traffic? I guess it's repetitive.
I've got a star with like 5 months.
No, I think we're good about that. I'm not going to change my work. Have you been in my work? No, I don't think I've been in here. I love what other people do. It's so nice. You're always welcome to come pop in whenever you have time. I'm sure I have pictures
All right, you have a 10-minute break to go potty or do whatever, and then we'll share out on this. The bathroom is down and to your left, down by the cafeteria.
Right. Are you in a portable or a normal?
I'm in a normal one. We only have.
That'd be a good question.
No, she went to third, remember? Yeah.
Like what they used to say, smoke if you got them.
Yeah.
What?
I used to say that way back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
6:30.
Oh, because Dave says 6 o'clock. It says 4:30.
Ours has these windows. We actually have a tent that, like that whole wall up there is 2 feet of window. And then we have a whole wall of side windows. So they put blinds.
You don't want to leave
Yeah,
it's supposed to be 2 hours, so we got 20 hours of time.
I just told my daughter I'd be done at 6.
So if you need to
Sorry. Oh, yeah.
I was
And maybe like one. I like the Harry Potter because they can at least get it at that level. Like they can watch it and get it. Like that's why my little ones just don't get it. I'm like, there's no point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We're seeing that in there. Yeah. I see, that's so cool. I mean, like kind of inspires me to keep going. Yeah. And then we did this show last year.
Hey guys, we're 4:30 to 6:30. I'm sorry that it was advertised 4:30 to 6. But we have to do, we need our 2 hours, so yeah.
No, just 6:30.
If you need to leave early, you can, but just do.
No, I said 6 on the paper.
2 hours.
So, yeah.
It's 7. Oh my gosh, I thought that was great.
You were excited.
I
I was all happy and the rest of us were
I thought it was
like,
7, so this is like, I have no idea what to
I told her,
think of Destiny, always 5th grader, that sort of,
she knew.
we have a 2nd grader who wants to find out about kids. So we got one of those.
Second grade? Oh, Gian.
A 2nd
I didn't know where to
Yeah, Gian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the brother of mine. Yeah.
We have an extremely difficult
You say extremely different.
But you got Noah. You got Noah this year. I just have a kid that we need 9 times. So of course he doesn't want to.
They told me I can't work
Over the last 2 days, I've been
You've only taught upper grade, haven't
to
you?
get him to do stuff with his
No,
brother.
actually,
Amazing, and he's a squirrel.
started out doing
Give him the
oh, okay. First grade to 5th grade, did 8th grade for a couple of years. And then I went to that. I had a girl who was humping things. I'm trying to figure out what to do. I asked Jessica, but kind of helped me get there. So I'm trying to figure out, I wonder if there's something going on. No, I've seen parents, I think it's just that she's really low, like, might be sped. So I think she's kind of self-discovered thing on her own. So I'm trying to like say, focus. Because like she'll be on the carpet and like the chair leg or whatever will be there. And it's just like, and I kind of realized, I was like, I think, like, it clicked in my head finally, like, so it finally, like, and I finally told this one night, like, I'm finally like, hey, this is going on, like, this is what I think it is, and I don't think anything, like, I don't think it's that, the bad stuff. I'm like, I just like self-discovery about like some strategies I'm waiting. So I might be waiting forever, but I won't hold my breath.
Wait, did she respond with, you should be doing Because she responded to us on different things.
No, she doesn't tell me that, but she's like, oh, we have a 4th or 5th grader doing that too. And I was kind of like, I guess because I asked Ignis, because I'm like, okay, you've done this for a while. And she's like, one of the kids I had is still doing it. I guess now, like 4th grade, I guess.
So I kind of throw myself like in between.
That's amazing. Yeah, she's just special. And I think that she's good. Yeah, I've met mom, I've seen dad, and they don't seem they seem involved. Yeah, it's like good ones. So I'm like, okay, you don't freak me out. No bad people there.
No, you don't.
You don't freak me out. There's just some parents who are like, you're weird.
And 3 teachers came out.
If you tried that, nothing bad's happening. Interesting. This is very interesting. Yeah. Especially for Nettie. Yeah, it's just kind of like, oh.
I mean, I'm learning. I mean, I had a conference at first.
I'm focused in my class.
And she So I learned a lot of school. But very quickly because it was like yeah. And that was like my biggest concern with other kids when you started. But who knows? New week, it was okay.
I was right next to Mulder.
It's interesting. I guess that's
Yeah, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. No,
the eyebrows.
Yeah, it's the eyebrows, you're right.
Upstairs.
And the shape of their face and everything.
It's the eyebrows. Dad up there.
Have you guys done any of the twig yet?
It's awesome.
So did you guys get the Yellowstone kit?
Yes.
Yep. Was it in a different box from the other ones?
Yeah, there's 4 boxes.
We only got 3. We're missing Yellowstone. Okay, that makes sense.
By the end of the month, more.
Oh, the essentials.
Yeah, that's what they were. I opened the thing and it had it was more of the consumables, and it had very little.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a spray bottle. I was only a
I got a Michael and I didn't come all the stickers. I got clearance because I'm like, I don't care. I just want to try it. If I don't read this way, I read this way.
That's what.
By making myself try it this time. Yeah.
We were
I
all
rather read
set to
this
go
way.
today.
That's how I always do, but I'm trying it this way. I'm like, at least I'll try it.
Yeah. I usually get the 800, but this year Janet talked me into getting the
And so they're now like
paper one.
around other classrooms.
It's another
The wrong one.
And so it has like it's 10 for each month,
Yeah.
and it has like goals. It has goals, and then your kids' birthdays and your notes, and then it has your calendar, and then it has your stuff.
They already have this part for you though.
You can customize it.
That's nice.
And then like at the back, there's your checklist, and then there's more goals and like classroom communication and all sorts of stuff. And so I'm trying it. The one thing I didn't like is a checklist.
Yeah, we're trying to do that too, and
You can order extra checklist pages, so I'm gonna buy like the supplement.
handle it.
This is the only reason I really like this.
It was like,
Yeah, oh my god, I'm in love. I probably earned 100 of that, but I'm like, this is so easy. I got it when it was clearance. This and stuff. Like $20
But I did like that, but there's certain things about it that don't even so I'm like, I like all that next year, but there's something to try something.
I think Katie got it because she's trying to online it to very easy to computer that way it's with her. And she likes it, like I really need to figure it out. Yeah, I'm like, maybe I'll try that next year.
Right now, I like this. And Jenna does that too because then it goes on your computer. Version of it, and then you have like a space.
Yeah.
You know, wait, talking about that.
I can't wait.
But it's not very good. We're at a point and now they're elastic teeth, so it grows really fast. But once they start growing, you know, teeth can support. So they're going to move.
yeah.
You want for social studies?
Gosh, anything you give me, I'll give me everything. She's a great man.
Whatever it is. Everybody's so way bigger.
Are you guys like the American? I'm like,
Actually, we
I love that I made like these PowerPoint session you could rotate. I'm like, click, where are you going? Find your name.
yeah, that's about how I feel it.
Yeah.
And she asked if it's more American, to what we like to do.
We're going to do chapters 10 to 13 and then 14 to 17. We're doing the Revolutionary War and then the Constitution.
Oh, okay.
And that way we can go into detail of that. And then that's what they
And there is no way.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of learning. It's just taking forever. Like social studies and science and the time limit. Yes, Khan Academy second year. Yeah, so that disappeared for a while.
Teach quizzes. hard to especially something like that. What it is random.
I wanted to hang stuff all the time.
You want it to be
All right, real quick. I'm gonna go to each table. If you have written down something that they've already mentioned, we don't have to reiterate that. Okay? So basically, I just want to see what the main ideas are. At this table, who wants to?
One of the biggest one was the about it should reflect what you're teaching, so your classroom should reflect what your philosophy is, what you're trying to teach the students. We really thought that was big.
Awesome. Anything else?
Not changing too often. That was another big thing, I think.
Do you know why that's important?
Stability maybe for them, right?
You have to realize that you guys, I mean all of us, for most of these kids, you're the most consistent thing in their life. I mean, our kids come from, not so much the Minarets crowd, but most of the Madera Unified kids are coming from homes that are primarily single parent, or both parents work a lot. They may be raising their brother and sisters. English may not be spoken in the home. They may not read ever. Their parents didn't read to them when they were in vitro, in womb, whatever that is. And I mean, it's just not something that's encouraged, right? Homework isn't done. I didn't realize, having been a teacher all these years, I knew that home life and structure was important. I didn't realize just how important until our niece came to live with us. Her mom didn't care. 5th grade education, was more worried about running prostitution out of her apartment and doing math. And, I don't crack the whip on this kid, but she knew I was a teacher. And my partner is retired military. So the kid just knew, she instinctively knew coming into our home that this was going to be the situation. And she thrives under it. We don't have to do anything. She just knows. And that, thank God, because I probably wouldn't be effective anyway. But it's important for them to know what is consistent and what is expected. And if you change it every other day, you're causing upheaval in these kids who knew where their seat was. Who knew, even if the kid next to them was a nightmare, they at least knew they were sitting next to that kid. And you probably realize right before holidays and those of you that are first year, you're going to learn this really quickly, but right before holidays, right before summer, right before Christmas, right? Worst behavior ever. And it's not because they want to be bad to make you, they're stressing out because they have to go home and not have you, not have the consistency of their day-to-day. For some of those kids, the only food they get to eat is at school. So you've got to realize when they go on a 2-week Christmas break or a 3-week Christmas break, they're going to lose weight. They're going to be stressed. I mean, it's a lot that you guys have to deal with. So that's the biggest reason about classroom. Anything else? Or are you guys? Okay. Next group. Give me one or two.
We basically talk about how to display the kids' art.
The what?
The art.
Oh, yeah.
And we have an infant and toddler class, but we've been in our new classroom for a year now, and we have nothing on the walls.
We share the room with
3 other teachers.
And so when we try to put stuff on our walls, then those things just come down because now it's the next class, we share that class, so they don't want our stuff on the walls. So this happened year after year, even when we were in the older building that we were at. So now we're trying to, have space so we can present our students' work so the parents can see their kids' art work on the walls.
And we could talk about maybe some ideas. I don't know if you probably.
One of the ideas that came up in the last meeting was that each teacher would have their own boards and
Yes.
boards now. So that's where we're at in that process of ordering the boards and boards.
Oh, good.
So that we can each have our own space. But then as that thought came along, we're thinking about when parents see other art of other students and things of that manner, because then it becomes a little bit competitive.
Oh, yeah.
We have teachers that are doing lesson plans where it's more about the product than of the process. So
like that looks like a pretty.
Yeah, they colored in the lines, but the teacher helped them do it.
We have staff putting in their eyes and finishing their ears. And
That's that whole argument about do we kill their creativity? Yeah. I think it's important too, I'm sure you guys all do too, that it's important to the kids to see their work. Even if it's absolutely not what you asked, and you know the nose is up here or whatever, that kid is going to be so proud of that. He doesn't care, or she doesn't care if it's beautiful, right? It's about them. Do you guys have anything else? Or is that the main one?
Well, that's the main one.
That's huge. That's really huge. How about you guys?
Sorry, you were
No,
Oh, okay. We really liked, after you arrange it, to sit in your kids' desks so you can see what they're seeing and what's going on from their point of view.
I should have done that a lot more. Yes. Well, I probably couldn't fit in the seats, number one. They're so small, and I'm so not small. But, yeah, I think it's good. And I think it's interesting, too. Like, you know the desks that have, you guys probably don't have them anymore, but the all-in-one. And then you realize that I never really thought about, okay, you guys sit here, sit here, sit here. I never thought about the kid that was built like me. And how maybe that's not only he will try or she will try to get in that desk, even if it hurts, because they don't want to be embarrassed. You know, and I've never really, that's something for us to really think about. Because I was always big, but I used to be really skinny. And I never thought about how uncomfortable that could be. And then how embarrassing. It's not just the uncomfortable part, it's the chain of events that comes after that. So, anything else?
I liked, it was a big aha for me, to maintain the same seating arrangement during assessment as you had during that unit.
Again, stability, comfort, right?
Well, and they're thinking spots. They may have looked at something while they're studying that when they look at it again, it's like, oh yeah, that.
And even if they make you cover your posters, which I know they do for a lot of standardized tests,
still look there.
It's just like when you envision something so you remember it. It's their mind's eye. And they may not even see it, but they're going to see it. They're still going to process it.
Yeah.
That's really cool too. Back here?
One I took away from was like how things are stored and accessible. Like since I have first grade, we try to do communal. This year I cut the communal because too many problems and everyone has an individual, and it's flourished because they're very mind oriented.
Yeah.
So having their own sense of their materials like impacts them a lot.
That's excellent. And it teaches them responsibility for their things. Anything else at this table?
No blind spots?
No blind spots?
Yeah. Well, you can monitor all your kids and you can see what they're doing.
We were just talking about teacher desk. And like I used to have my desk kind of enclosed. Not really sure why I did that, except that I had a lot of crap. And I realized if there was ever an emergency, I couldn't get out quick. But the other thing was, teaching high school, this kid shut a door one time, shut the door, which I never, you never leave a kid in a classroom with you alone. And closed my door and then walked over and got me stuck in my area. And I mean, I may look big, but I'm the biggest wussy ever. And so I was so scared I almost couldn't breathe. And I was able to talk him out, but then I panicked. And I realized, yeah, that wasn't a wise move on my part. Or if you have your back turned to your class, you need to be able to see all the time. Because I know middle school kids might do this, I definitely know high school. If they think you have a blind spot, stuff's gonna happen in that blind spot that you don't want to be aware of. Like you're gonna lose your job over it. So be aware. Anything else? Because you guys are a big group, I don't want to leave anybody out. Okay, what about you guys? Yeah? You guys?
One of the things we talked about is keeping active areas separate. So in our school we we encourage collaboration between students, but we also, and I know not everybody has this, but we'll also have a secondary classroom. We have a big lab space and then we have a secondary classroom. So in case kids need some individual work with a small group, take them in there. But you could also just have a section of your classroom where that kind of stuff happens. And then we also talked about having flexible furniture where it'd be easy to group them together and then if need be separate them out.
Yeah. He spoke for you, right? Okay. It's tough because I was avid, so we did a lot of group. Socratic meant a lot of furniture moving. And I didn't always plan accordingly for that. Especially the all-in-one chairs, yeah, those are fun. And then when they try to get them into a group, and it's important to be able to visualize that so that you're moving as little as you have to. But you need to be able to do that. You know, groups of 4, groups of 5, whatever you do. It's important to have that, and I think the whole active, don't have your reading area, next to your manipulative area, or, older kids don't have that. You need to have that separation for them. Not only, again, for stability, they need to know that they can do that, but you also have that kid that likes to bounce, and he's going to be over here playing manipulative, and all of a sudden a Lego's going to come hit the person reading, and you've lost everything there, right? I mean, the whole class is going to laugh, you've lost them all. So you have to be aware of that and be sensitive to that. Hopefully you will take some of this regarding the classroom and kind of think about it. We won't see you for a couple weeks.
September 30th.
So, September 30th? Oh, it'll be right after I do the wedding. Anyway, you guys will, you need to think about it over the week, make some changes. Your homework, just so you know, will be taking a picture now and taking a picture after you've made any changes. And then taking this into consideration, colors, all that kind of stuff.
One thing you can do, especially if you're a class that has one way for direct instruction and another way for Kagan strategies and small group cooperative learning, is use painter's tape. You know, the blue painter's tape and on the carpet that marks where the chairs are supposed to return to. Or if you have some kind of row where you want the chairs to start so that they don't creep on their own towards the back of the room, painter's tape can be a great pen to use.
That's an excellent idea. Hey Steve, do I need to have sound?
It's on. You have a question?
What do you want us to do for those of us that don't have class this year?
Give me your ideal setup and tell me you don't have a class.
If you had a room, like when
we are working on that right now.
Cool.
And tell me what makes this work for red, green, and yellow. In other words, how can you make it work it, and how would you have? And then when you get there, you're like, oh, that's not going to work.
Are we gonna have place to upload that or Google
Yes,
Docs?
Yeah, Google Classroom. I'm gonna, hopefully if I do this right, you'll be watching this video.
Now make it big.
I'm trying.
There you go. Good job. Oh, wait.
I don't hear sound.
I might have lied to you.
Well, I won't touch it because we don't have any.
Give you just a quick spin around.
It's not so much what she's saying as I want you to see.
Classroom tour, this is my third one, so if you look in my YouTube channel, you'll see 2 others. So let's get this party started. Alright, so on Meet the Teacher, I have these place cards that tell you where to start. Start 1, parents have to sign in. And just like last year, I have those baskets where kids turn in completed work. And I have the same where they have to highlight their name. So if they didn't put their name, then they don't have anything to highlight. It will just help them make sure their name is on their homework. And my place where I will display my students' work. That's sort of my math wall and plus the grades poster. And new this year are my cubbies, and unlike last year, I had time to label them with their names. And they also have their numbers. And one of my helpers, Joey, helped me put those scrap of papers on the back just to kind of give them a little bit of color. So we are Sunshine State Tag 2014, 15, 3rd through 5th grade. These are the new titles. And most of them are 4th grade. If you can see, the pink color in my classroom means it's 4th grade level. And what my students do is each time they finish a book and they take an air quiz, they get to put their name on these star bookmarks to showcase and let others know that they have read that book. Option 2 in my Meet the Teacher is the school supplies. Parents will just drop off what they bring in today. Hopefully this is enough room in my bean table. There's also over there, I'll just have them drop off the line paper and notebooks and folders on by the sink. And they can also pick up the 4th grade supply list for this year. There, all there on the cabinets are my math words. And I have this thing called brownie points each time our class gets complimented by one of the teachers for, having a good line or good behavior outside of our classroom. We get brownie points, and at the end, when we fill out this pan with brownie points, then we get a mystery reward.
How many of you feel like, oh my gosh?
That's a lot. There's
a lot.
She lost me the first 20 seconds.
Okay. There's a lot going on here. Most of you, though, have somebody that can help you. Who can help you? There's somebody that I assigned to you that can help you.
Mentor.
You all have a mentor. You can talk about that. And I make fun of it, but there is a difference, generally speaking, not specifically, between a guy's room and a gal's room. And that's highly organized and there's no way my mind thinks like that. I would need help with that. Anyway, you can continue. I'm sorry.
No, we don't. My point is made. What did you notice? All the colors. Did you notice how cluttered everything was? I think that's overwhelming. I think it's interesting. She has all these organizational strategies, but that's lost in the chaos. And I think it's funny that she's so proud of it. She put it on YouTube. But I'm like, okay, but it's so bright and it's so busy and everything is so cluttered, even visually cluttered. Ideally, there shouldn't be much up on the front except maybe some helpful posters, learning posters. Other than that, when you're up talking, even though you should be moving around, but let's say you're standing where I am, there shouldn't be anything distracting from what I'm trying to do. So you want your focus on me, not on the 18 million posters or whatever. The rest of your room, knock it out. But I would be careful because your kids are all over the place. And you have to be cognizant of, with high school we had different classes, different groups coming in. And the group after lunch was out. They were napping. And the group right before lunch was bouncing off the walls. So you have to be aware not only of your clientele, but like with you guys who have classes all the way through, you know which kids are going to be blown away by a classroom like that. Some kids can handle it just fine. Others, not so much. And you have to be aware of that. And that's something we'll talk about quite a bit, about knowing your kids. So we're kind of doing that already. What did you guys notice that was conducive?
It's highly organized. Very detailed.
She had a process for everything, procedures.
She did.
But I can see where she had so many procedures that she's going to be inundated with, teacher, what do I do with this? Teacher, what do I do with that for the first part of the year?
Yep. Questions, repeated questions.
A lot of the wall space looks set. And it didn't look like it would be changed throughout the year. And if you don't change it throughout the year, they stop looking at it. So,
that's a good point.
And it looked like it was just not anything that was going to be changed to it. The math wall looks sort of set, like something she would have the whole year round. And my kids would stop looking at it after a month.
Loses its importance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? I think we've kind of already talked about what wasn't conducive. Colors, clutter. Yeah.
One thing she mentioned that I thought was kind of odd too is she said that the students turn in their reports of their work by the sink. And I was like, well, what if it fell into the sink or...
And inevitably...
It's kind of an odd place though too. Because if you're a kid, maybe you're kind of stressed out about that.
Well, and how many kids are going to go get a drink or wash their hands and there's going to be water all over the place? Yeah, that's a good point.
Or how many kids do you have that'll take the water from the sink and just go?
Just because they
can.
Right.
Just because they can.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been me though, so I understand. So they have that in their handouts, right?
Yes, it's green.
Okay.
No.
So how many of you have read Sanderson's Narrows? I'm assuming most of us. So she has a poem called Those Who Don't. And I've given it to you as kind of closed reading kind of deal. But I want you to think about doing that as a teacher, from the teacher lens. As your teacher. So how about this? I'll have you do it and turn it into me as an exit ticket. And then put your name on them, and I will make sure that I upload them so you can read others. And then if there's a few, yeah, let's just do that because we are running out of time. And just so you know, make sure you sign up for the class, and make sure you check it for homework and all of that. I'll have it posted tonight.
And then the evaluation.
Oh, and the evaluation.
These are free, y'all. So if you think you need something like this,
Let me reiterate. You're going to finish this poem, and then the evaluation for today's session is right there. Those are the two things that need to be, and you can't take a photo of it.
remember what you like?
Oh yeah. Well done. Oh yeah.